so first up on the agenda, we have House File 3605 from Chair Joachim. Representative Joachim is going to move that House File 3605 be laid over for possible inclusion in the 2024 tax bill. So Representative Joachim, you have a DE1 that is in the packet. Would you like to move your author's amendment?
Yes, Chair Gomez, I would like to move the DE1. It actually incorporates some suggestions that the Department of Revenue made.
All right, so Representative Joachim has moved the DE1. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carries. The DE1 is adopted. And Representative Joachim, the bill is in the form you'd like. To your bill.
Thank you so much, Chair Gomez. Thank you for hearing 3605 today. This bill is about leveling the playing field among our nonprofit child care centers. Currently, nonprofit child care centers that own the building that their facility is in are exempt from property taxes, but those who rent the space for their facility do not receive any property tax exemptions. The idea for this bill was brought to me by one of my local early childhood centers in Hopkins, Kids Zone, and Marcy Durkings is here today with Kids Zone. They were originally located in St. Louis Park within a church building where they were able to receive the property tax exemption. But due to the portion of the church property being sold for development for multi-unit housing, the child care center had to relocate. The property they rented in Hopkins was an old commercial building, and Kids Zone quickly found out that they no longer qualified for the property tax exemption, even though their nonprofit status had not changed. When I took a tour of their new facility, I asked what some of their barriers were to being able to provide affordable services to their families and a livable wage for their employees. The cost of their rent was near the top of the list, so I did a little research and realized the inequity in the statutes. This bill would provide a property tax refund for nonprofit daycares who rent their facilities and mirrors some of the savings their counterparts who own their own buildings receive. It is structured similar to a renter's credit, with the owner of the building providing a certificate of gross rent paid to the owner of the child care center that is renting in their building. The owner of the child care center would then be able to submit this certificate along with the appropriate paperwork to show their nonprofit status to the Department of Revenue for a refund that would equal 10% of their gross rent paid. The bill also does require the Department of Revenue to submit the amount of submit the amount of rent constituting the property taxes paid by eligible centers to the committee by March of 2025. So we can just see what it looks like and how many people took advantage of it, so we can move forward from there. So chairs and members, our child care facilities are facing many challenges. This is just one way to provide them with a little bit of relief in their overhead. With me today, I have two directors of child care centers in my area. First, I have Marisha Durkings, from the executive director from the Kids Zone Early Learning Center. Chair Gomez, if you'd like to have her come up first.
Yeah, so I'm going to move now to testifiers. I have two testifiers who've signed up. First up is Marcy Durking. Welcome to the committee. Please just state your name as you get started with your testimony.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Marcy Deerking.
Please proceed. Thank you.
Yeah. So I am the director at Kids Zone Early Learning Center, and as Representative Joachim had mentioned, we had previously been located in St. Louis Park, but were displaced for a housing development, which is fantastic, but we needed to find a new place, and we were looking kind of all over the area and ended up finding somewhere that we could rent in Hopkins. And the reason we chose to rent as opposed to buy was to try and stabilize our budget and keep things as consistent as we can. But what we have found is that our property has been increased in value, nearly doubled over the last 2 years. So now we have a $138,000 property tax bill that is due. And as you know, early childhood is in a critical state right now. We barely are paying livable wages, if we are. And with so much of our revenue, which is tuition-based, going to payroll and then into the rent and property tax, it's becoming pretty cost prohibitive for us to continue in this state. So we're just looking to be included in the nonprofits that own as opposed to rent.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Up next is Kylie Cooper. Welcome to the committee. Please just state your name and as you get started with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Kylie Cooper. I'm here to speak in favor of House File 3605. I'm the Executive Director for Rise Early Learning Center, which is a nonprofit early childhood program in St. Louis Park that opened at the beginning of this year. Each member of the committee, I'm sure, is very aware of the different challenges that exist in running a child care program. We have low margins that often result in low stagnant wages for our staff, heightened costs of tuition shouldered by parents. For us, 82% of our annual budget goes to staff salary and benefits. The remaining 18% is for general operating, food, and facility needs. My program is incredibly fortunate to not be obligated to cover any of the rent. We cover only common area maintenance, and that's due to our partner in Common Bond communities where we're co-located. If we were to pay rent, it would be over 10% of our annual budget, and that would leave us with difficult decisions about where we would cut, whether it's services, staff, or raising tuition for families. With that burden alleviated for us, we've been able to implement pay parity for our teachers. We have a great staffing model. We maintain low ratios, and we can be sure that we're providing the best quality of care and education for our programs. We're able to serve the population that we've set out to. If we were to own our space, we'd be entitled to the property tax break, but there's nothing that extends that break to programs who rent their spaces. The implementation of this model disproportionately disadvantages programs who are new or who may not have the capital up front to purchase their own spaces, or programs like mine who are built in a model of community collaboration as its basic design. At this point, childcare programs need incentives to be bold, to expand, and to grow. And this bill is a step in the right direction that enables programs to allocate funds where they can be the most impactful, the pockets of parents and the pockets of the providers, without adding an additional penalty to the property owner. So this bill is correcting an inequity that already exists in the marketplace and will have a noticeable impact for nonprofit centers. And I urge successful passage of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there anyone else who hasn't signed up who wishes to testify on House File 3605 as amended? Not seeing any, we'll move to member discussion. Is there any member discussion?
Chair.
Representative Pinto.
I'm going to play to type. Thank you, Chair. And I've been fairly quiet about early childhood issues, but thank you so much, Chair Joachim, for advancing this. And there's just a ton of things that we need to do to try to address this both incredibly messed up and incredibly important sector. And so this is one piece of that work, and so grateful to you for it. The economics just don't work, and they wouldn't work for K-12, and makes no sense why we'd think they'd work for 0 to 4. But any help we can give, especially to nonprofits that are stepping in this way, feels like it'd be really good to do if we're able to. So thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Representative Pinto. Representative Whitty.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. Thank you, Representative Joachim, for bringing this bill forward. I did tour one of my child care facilities and heard the same concerns. My question would be, they were for profit, but the rent thing is a real big deal for them too, because they don't own their building. Would there be, if it's for the help of the child care centers to help our families, should we be including for profit also? Because when they rent, it does impact their bottom line. Thank you.
Representative Joachim.
Chair Gomez, Representative Goody, that is a good question. When I was approaching this, I was approaching it as a leveling the playing field for now and then collecting the data so we could see what it would look like going forward to maybe expanding that as well. So it was more this year about looking at just that parity.
All right, thank you. Is there Representative Swedzinski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would the author be willing to maybe kind of do the experiment and the data collection from the profit side to kind of gather that, just switch which ones we're going to gather the data from and kind of look at it from that perspective to kind of help develop, for-profit business first and then look at the nonprofit side because they have different advantages that for-profit centers potentially don't have.
Representative Joachim.
Chair Gomez, Representative Studinsky, if it were a budget year, I'd say yes, but since we are on a tight budget and in a surplus and bonding year, I would want to just start with this parity right now. But definitely a conversation we need to continue to have because renting and owning is different when it comes to our child care centers and trying to figure out how the best way we can help them with that overhead cost.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Koznick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Joachim, I'm just kind of looking at the packet here. There's a letter from the Minnesota Child Care Association, Claire Sanford. I think she makes a good point, and find the spot here. That the bill would obviously be meaningful to nonprofit child care centers, but the fact remains that the vast majority of child care centers in the United States, both centers and in-home, and particularly smaller providers, operators of, on a for-profit model, would also benefit from this, similar to the other comments. But also, I believe we're looking at spending over $500 million this biennium. It's hard to say that it's not a budget year.
I didn't hear a question in there. Is there anybody else who wishes to raise perhaps a different point? Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies for going a second time. But
No, please.
Just wanted to note, I appreciate in what I hear in my colleagues' points an underlying recognition, as the letter from Child Care Association says, that early care and learning, just like K-12 learning, is a public good that deserves public support. We had tremendous investments last session in recognition of that, that went quite a bit to those providing child care and early learning and we could call it for-profit. I mean, really, it's barely, I mean, as this says, I mean, the margins are incredibly thin. We've got huge concerns. And so I guess I really appreciate the recognition that this is in fact a public good deserving of public support. We need to have the broader conversation about that. I guess I view this bill as the Chair Joachim said, is simply, leveling the playing field in one small point. But boy, if we could have a commitment among all of us to say that this public good deserves significant public investment, property tax exemption, that's good, that's nice. Broadly, we need to recognize that that the investments we make in those early years pay off for all of us all the way along. And I really am heartened by what I'm hearing in the comments on this bill and hope we can continue that in future years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Representative Koznick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think what the bill does do that I like it recognizes the fact that we have a ton of regulations on our businesses. We also have a ton of taxes on our businesses. And to go to whether you rent or own a property, maybe the other side of the aisle would recognize that the temporary tax on commercial and industrial businesses that was imposed as a temporary tax and now seems to continue to go on and on, maybe the other side of the aisle might consider eliminating the tax on commercial and industrial altogether and not pick just one sector that's struggling economically, but we have a whole variety of businesses in every sector that continue to have meet their bottom line, and reducing or eliminating, but I would even start with reducing the commercial industrial property tax on all our commercial and industrial property and recreational property. Get rid of that whole tax and help all our businesses.
Right, so we have a bill in front of us that doesn't concern that, but we'll go to Representative Joachim.
Madam Chair,
Thank you, Chair Gomez.
You're not recognized right now.
Vice-
Representative Joachim has the floor. Representative Koznick. Representative Joachim.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. Yes, this really is a simple bill about leveling the playing field, but if we want to talk about CI property tax, that property tax was put in place when we collapsed the tax rates for buildings and commercial and industrial. We're getting a large break, and we're trying to figure out a way to make sure that folks were paying into our education system, which, as a reminder, 38% of our state budget goes to our education system, which our commercial and industrial folks benefit from, like, as we all do, to have well-educated employees. So that is definitely a conversation for the other day. Over the years, we have frozen the levy on that. We've exempted the first $200,000 or $150,000 of property. It's been a while since I've been property tax chair, but of property from that. And that is definitely a discussion to have another day, but not on this bill.
Thank you, Representative Joachim. Is there any further discussion on the bill? All right, not seeing any closing comments for us, Representative Joachim.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. Letters in the packet are more letters of support. And thank you for your time and attention and the stimulating conversation. Our child care centers across Minnesota, as Chair Pinto said, are facing many challenges. This bill is just one little way we can level the playing field and provide them with some relief in their budgets. I would ask for your support as the House tax bill for this session is put together. And thank you for your indulgence, Chair Gomez.
Thank you very much, Representative Youakim. And with that, Representative Youakim will renew her motion that House File 3605, as amended, be laid over for possible inclusion in the 2024 tax bill, and it is laid over.